I think what you're saying is, why aren't there more journalists who are prepared to speak out about the system in which they work? And that's a very good question. And I think journalists, like all people who work within great institutions, great organizations, great corporations, as I have done. I've made my films for a big commercial television company. I think that in Australia it's especially important that those journalists, be they in television, radio or newspapers, who feel that their own institutions are really part of the problem. And I think there are a number who do. I'm not despondent about my own craft as a craft. I'm not even despondent perhaps about the people who work within certain newspapers and magazines, and television companies and so on. But I am despondent about their silence. It's very difficult to speak out often, and it's very difficult to simply do your job in a different way. But like all working people, and that's all journalists are, they do have the power to act together. I think back to the time when Rupert Murdoch moved his operation in London to his fortress in East London called Wapping, when everything changed. It was a sea change. In the process, he sacked 5,000 people, just like that. The journalists almost didn't go. They lost, the vote was lost in the union ballots by about half a dozen. Now, had they voted not to go, I doubt whether that embodiment, or that embodiment, I suppose, of everything that Murdoch stands for, would ever have got off the ground. So journalists have power. And it's really up to them to organise that power. Some years ago on The Age, journalists produced an excellent charter. I don't know whether some of you remember it. And they published it. It was worthy, it was very liberal and all that, but it was good. And it came from the journalists themselves. Now, had they stood by that charter, then I think we would see a different kind of reporting. Instead, what we see is companies able to simply get rid of editors, as the last editor of the Melbourne Age, Jaspin, was summarily got rid of. It's quite interesting to give you an idea, when Jaspin was appointed, he came from a Scottish newspaper. I knew him quite well, and he tells he's gone. I don't think this is quite all right. This is when he was appointed, and this is the attack that was mounted on him. This will give you an idea. This is an email from him. I'm engaged in my own war with the Australian right. Just this morning, Gerard Henderson was impugning you, that's me, again saying you blah, blah, blah. I'm under real attack and cannot at this stage walk into a trap they are trying to set for me. I cannot think of a less tolerant Western country to operate at certain levels. Just Google me and you will see all these right-wing sites attacking me. Maybe when the dust settles, we will be able to publish your stuff. That's my stuff. The dust never settles, and Andrew Jaspin never was able to publish me, and Andrew Jaspin was finally sacked. Anyway, I'm giving you a little insight from the inside of the pressures that journalists face, and that's an editor. okay, of the principal paper in Melbourne. But that said, until journalists like Andrew, certainly those who feel that they are simply part of the machine that you mentioned, and that machine is part of the problem, until they make that their stand, then not a lot is going to change. My view is that there should be something like a fifth estate. The journalists like to talk of the fourth estate, you know, that the Edmund Burke idea of the fourth estate checking all the other institutions within a democracy. I think there should be a fifth estate in which journalists themselves, members of the public, those who teach journalism, those at journalism college, students at journalism college, actually organise as a network to deconstruct the media, the way they're taught themselves. In other words, start to examine it. And also bring action, direct action, against media organisations. I'm reminded of a couple of very successful direct actions. The BBC in Scotland was forced to change its tune on something that outraged people all over the country, and that was that it refused to broadcast an appeal for the people of Gaza. Now, although the appeal they finally broadcast in Scotland was very watered down, but it took people laying siege to the BBC offices to make that happen. I've never understood why the BBC are excluded from direct action, why the media is excluded from direct action campaigns. And it's about organisation.
Well, I mean, bias is a sort of quaint term in a way. I mean, the media is an extension of the established order. It's never been, as I said, the fourth estate. We're all taught, and I'm afraid too many media colleges still go on about their objectivity and impartiality as practiced in great institutions like the ABC and so on. It's just nonsense. They are the main newspapers and broadcasting institutions are an extension of the established order. They report from the top down. If you take any newspaper or listen to any broadcast, watch any broadcast, you just give yourself one test. What's the source of what they're telling you? It's from up there. It's never from down there. It's a series of statements. It's slightly different in North Korea, you know, where it's rather more honest, where they read out the statement from the great leader. It's not a lot of difference. You will get what they call politics being reported on the ABC, or the Middle East being reported. It's a series of news releases. They changed the top that says news release to ABC. But there's not that much difference. I don't joke all that much about it. So that's the nature of the institution. So I think this debate about whether they're biased or not is really beside the point. They are what they are. And they can only be changed, as I've suggested, by those going into them through the media colleges, those within them, and the public outside them, combining to force change on them, to force them, some of these organisations, to represent them, to be agents of them, people, not agents of power. And that's what they are now. This is not to suggest that they're all monoliths, can't be changed, that there aren't good people working in them, that there aren't honourable exceptions. There are. They need to get together.
About the internet.
The internet? What's the question?
Our friend follow his bias remark, the question about the role of the internet.
Well, the internet is, well, we all know how useful it is. It's extremely useful, and it doesn't have some of the reliable sites, well, all the reliable sites give us a lot of information that we wouldn't have. I depend on it a great deal now for research. So it's been a tremendous advance. But the internet is also being colonised by the big people, by Murdoch, who's become internet obsessed,